Next month, people from all over the world will be in Bonn, Germany for the UN Climate Change Conference called COP23. That refers to the 23rd annual conference of the parties.
Climate Generation, a Will Steger legacy, is sending a delegation of Minnesota leaders to the conference. And Ellen Anderson is included in that delegation. She is the director of the U of M's Energy Transition Lab. And of course, she's also a former Minnesota State Senator. And Ellen Anderson is joining us right now. Thank you so much for coming in.
Well, good morning. It's great to be here.
All right. So you are going to this UN Global Climate Change Conference. How are American delegations going to be received at a conference in the aftermath of the president pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords?
Well, that's a great question, and one of the reasons I really want to go is to find out, in part, we have to go there to find out what the U.S. official delegation will be saying, because we're not really sure exactly whether they're even going to show up. But the good news...
So you're not even sure the official U.S. delegation... National delegation will show up. Well, Minnesota will be there.
But there will be many dozens of Americans there informing and explaining to the rest of the world that most people in the United States still support the Paris Agreement, number one, and number two, that we're making tremendous progress forward on reducing carbon in our economy and moving towards clean energy throughout the United States, so that there's actually a lot of hope here that Americans want to bring to this international gathering, to say, don't believe just what you read in the newspapers about what's going on in Washington.
Senator, one of the things that I tell people when I talk about climate change, when I blog about climate change, is don't go to a politician for science and don't go to a scientist for political advice. So what role do policymakers and politicians play in shaping how not only we, but the world goes forward? Why do we need you guys?
Yeah, and I'm not a politician anymore, but I have kind of one foot in that world.
You're more one than I am, for sure, yeah.
And I work with elected officials and work with a lot of government officials. And I think what's really important right now is that policymakers at the state and local level in the United States are more important than they ever have been in terms of implementing progress and moving policy forward. While we have kind of a gap in Washington right now on this topic of climate change and clean energy. And Minnesota is a perfect example of that. And in Minnesota, we've set really strong policies for requiring more renewable energy and carbon reduction from our economy. And the result of that has been very good for Minnesota. And we've created tens of thousands of jobs in clean energy. We've increased the amount of renewable energy production in our state, and it's, our biggest utility is now saying they're going to be getting 60% of their energy from renewable sources like wind and solar in just a few years.
Anybody who doesn't look toward, we're all going to renewable energy. It's going to happen, whether you're on board or not. Anybody who doesn't, I feel, is leaving money on the table. This is America. It's okay to make a lot of money off of solutions that are green, right?
Exactly. And now wind and solar are actually getting to be the cheapest energy source, and so they can compete head-to-head with all the fossil fuels. And people want that to happen. They want to see the health impacts. They want cleaner air. They like renewable energy. It's not really a partisan issue when you step outside the halls of the capitals.
Right.
That's what Americans think.
But let me ask you, we had a piece on that was very dramatic, talking about the changes in Alaska, how those magnificent glaciers, half of them will be gone in a number of years. Are you concerned that the policies or the lack of policies in Washington will have a negative impact on our climate, both in Alaska and here in Minnesota and across the country?
Absolutely, and I don't want to be Pollyannish and say everything's fine, because there's a strong sense of urgency, and we all, if we have children or care about the next generation, there's a very strong sense of urgency. We don't want them to be facing the problems that scientists are telling us are already happening. And so we need to move forward, and people need to be clear about where they stand on this, and in the meantime, before we have elections that change those kinds of things, I think the economy is going to move forward on renewable energy, and cities, hundreds of cities have pledged to support the Paris Agreement. Hundreds of companies have pledged to support it. States, governors like Governor Dayton have pledged to support it. And so there's lots of sectors that are moving forward to try to continue this progress that just about every other country of the world thinks is an urgent and big challenge.
Well, thank you so much, Senator, for coming in. And obviously, Minnesota will have a voice at the table in Bonn at the UN Climate Change. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wish I could go. If you have room in your suitcase, I'll come with you.
Okay.
I'm lucky to be part of a university delegation.
Okay, fine.
All right. Well, time now for